Marry me, Miss Zora. The little boy's voice cut through the sound of rain hammering the windows. He stood between steel prep tables in the back of a Seoul restaurant kitchen, navy coat too expensive for this greasy place, eyes too serious for someone barely 7 years old. Zora Hollins pressed harder against the freezer, trying to make herself invisible. Her server's apron was bunched in her shaking hands. Outside the kitchen doors, she could hear them. Uncle Kwame's drunk breathing, Cousin Derek's boots pacing the dining room floor like a predator circling prey. "I know you're in there, Zora." Kwame's voice slithered through the doors. "Manager said your shift ended at midnight. It's 12:17. Where you gonna hide, girl?" 3 years. She'd run 3 years from Atlanta to Seoul, changed cities, changed jobs, sent just enough money home to keep them away. Tonight that strategy died. The boy tilted his head, studying her. "Why are you hiding?" "Bad men," Zora whispered. "Very bad men." His eyes went wide. "Like gangsters?" Despite the fear clawing at her throat, she almost smiled. "Close enough." "My appa says gangsters are scared of people with power." He said this like he was reciting a Bible verse, dead serious. "You need someone powerful to protect you." "Yeah, well, I'm fresh out of those." The boy frowned. Then his whole face lit up like he'd just solved world hunger. "You should marry someone rich. Rich people can do anything. My appa says money is louder than guns." Subscribe if you have not, before the next twist catches you off guard. Zora stared at him. "Your dad sounds intense." "He's very intense." The boy nodded. "But also very rich. And very alone. My Iyama left when I was 4. Appa works all the time. He needs someone nice." His gaze swept over her face. "You look nice. Your eyes are kind." Something in Zora's chest cracked open. This kid, hiding in a kitchen at midnight, talking about his lonely father with such casual heartbreak, it destroyed her. "What's your name?" she asked. "Choi Dae-hyun. Everyone calls me Dae." He stuck out his hand, formal as a businessman. "I'm 6 3/4." She shook it. His fingers were small and warm. "I'm Zora, 27 and completely lost. Then marry me." The words came out so simple, so earnest, that Zora actually laughed. A sound caught between desperate and broken. "Marry you?" "Yes." He straightened his tiny shoulders. "Then my appa has to protect you. It's the law. And if someone threatens appa's family, he destroys them." Daehyun paused, then added with frightening sincerity. "He destroyed Iyama's boyfriend when they tried to take me. The man's company went bankrupt in 17 days. A chill crawled down Zora's spine. "Dae, I don't think—" "Please." His voice cracked. Suddenly just a child. "I'm tired of appa being sad. And you're hiding like I used to hide when Iyama's boyfriend yelled, 'You need help. I can help.'" The kitchen door exploded open. "Zora!" Kwame's bulk filled the doorway. "Get out here before we—" He stopped. Behind Zora, something moved in the shadows. Not something. Someone. Choi Jinho didn't walk into rooms. He commanded them. Tall, lean, wearing a black coat that cost more than Zora made in 6 months. His face was all sharp angles and cold calculation. When his eyes swept the kitchen, Zora felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. Those eyes landed on Daehyun. Something flickered. Relief, fury, fear, all at once. "Appa!" Daehyun scrambled forward, grabbing Zora's hand and dragging her with him. "This is Zora. I asked her to marry me. You have to protect her now." Jinho's gaze snapped to Zora like a sniper finding a target. She felt it like a punch. His eyes traced her stained uniform, her corn-rowed hair, the bruise on her wrist where Derek had grabbed her last week. Finally, they settled on where his son clutched her hand. "Excuse me?" His English was perfect. His tone was absolutely lethal. It's not—" "He's joking," Zora stammered. I was just hiding and he... She accepted. Daehyun interrupted, squeezing her hand. I proposed and she said yes. That means she's family now. Right, Appa? Halmione says a promise is a promise. Still not subscribing? You don't want to miss what happens next? Boy, I don't know what kind of game. Kwame started forward. Jinho didn't even look at him. He raised 2 fingers. 4 men in black suits materialized from the dining area, not security guards. Something far more dangerous. They moved like soldiers, efficient, silent, deadly. Within seconds, Kwame was slammed against the wall. Derek was face down on the floor. Who are you? Jinho asked. Still hadn't raised his voice. Her family, Kwame wheezed. We got rights. You have nothing. Jinho's tone could freeze fire. Lee, check their backgrounds. Phone records, bank transactions, everything. If they've contacted her in the last 6 months, I want proof. One of the suited men was already typing on his phone. Jinho finally looked at Zora again. Are these men a threat to you? She should say no. Should diffuse this whole mess, apologize, disappear into the night like she always did. But Daehyun's hand was warm in hers. And this terrifying man was asking, not telling, not assuming, but actually asking if she needed help. Yes, Zora whispered. Then they're removed. He nodded to his men. Make sure they understand that returning to Seoul will be financially inadvisable. Kwame started to protest. One of the guards showed him something on a phone screen. Kwame's face went white as bone. Within 90 seconds, both men were escorted out the back door. Silent, shaking. Zora stood frozen, trying to understand what just happened. Jinho crouched in front of his son. Wait, we talked about wandering off. But you were on the phone again. Daehyun's lip jutted out. You're always on the phone. I was bored. So you proposed to a stranger in a restaurant kitchen? She's not a stranger now. She's my fiancé. Daehyun looked up at Zora with naked hope that physically hurt to witness. You did say yes, didn't you? Or were you lying? Halmione says lying makes your spirit ugly. Zora's throat closed. Jinho stood. Pulled out a business card. Heavy cream paper, embossed in Korean and English. Choi Jinho, Chairman, Hansong Group. Zora's stomach dropped. Hansong. As in, Hansong Electronics, Hansong Construction, Hansong Pharmaceuticals, the conglomerate that owned a third of Seoul's skyline. You're calling my driver. Jinho was already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean. And then to her, where do you live? I'm not, you don't have to. Address. Something in his tone made her answer automatically. He relayed it, ended the call. My men will ensure your family doesn't return. Tomorrow, someone will contact you with options. Options? For the first time, something almost human crossed his face. Almost. My son doesn't make promises lightly. He gets that from me. He looked at Daehyun, who watched them both with frightening intensity. If he asked you to marry him, he meant it. If you accepted, even in jest, he'll expect follow-through. So, options. We can stage a brief engagement for his peace of mind, compensate you for the inconvenience, and quietly dissolve it after a few months. Or? His eyes met hers. Empty. Exhausted. Or you can walk away now, and I'll explain to my son why adults lie to children. It wasn't a threat. It was bleaker. A man who expected disappointment like sunrise. Daehyun tugged her hand. You're not going to leave, are you? You're not like Iyama? And there it was. The wound that explained everything. Zora squeezed Daehyun's hand. I need to think. Can I think? Thinking is good, Daehyun said seriously. Appa thinks all the time, sometimes for 3 whole hours. Despite everything, Zora smiled. Then I'll think fast. Tomorrow? Jinho nodded once. Driver's outside. Black Genesis. He'll take you home. What happens next changes everything. Subscribe before you miss it. The Genesis GV80 was worth more than every car Zora had ever been inside, combined. Leather seats that hugged like a prayer. Silence so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. When they pulled up to her Hussip Jeep, a rundown semi-basement apartment in Sindangdong, the driver got out and opened her door like she was royalty, not a waitress in a stained uniform. "Miss Zora." His English was careful. "Chairman Choi asked me to give you this." An envelope. Inside, 2,000,001 in cash and a business card with a handwritten note in precise English. "For immediate expenses. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Hansong Building Lobby. CJ 4 months rent, 6 months of food. A plane ticket back to Atlanta if she wanted to run again." She should run. Instead, she stared at her cracked ceiling until dawn, thinking about a little boy who decided she was worth marrying. The next morning, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Hollins? This is Secretary Yoon from Hansong Group. Chairman Choi requested I arrange transportation for this afternoon's meeting. A car will arrive at 1:30 p.m. I haven't decided if..." "The car will arrive at 1:30 p.m., Secretary Yoon repeated pleasantly. "Please wear comfortable clothing. Young Master Dae-hyun insisted we include lunch." The call ended before Zora could protest. At 1:35 p.m., Zora sat in a private dining room on the 63rd floor of Hansong Tower, watching Dae-hyun demolish tteokbokki while explaining why tigers were superior to lions. "And tigers can swim?" he said, gesturing with a chopstick. "Lions hate water. Appa, tell her about the documentary." Jinho sat across from them, untouched coffee in front of him, watching his son with an expression that might have been fondness on someone more human. "The documentary was inconclusive. Only because you fell asleep." Dae-hyun turned to Zora. "He falls asleep during all the good parts." "I work 18-hour days," Jinho said mildly. "That's too much." Dae-hyun's face scrunched with worry. "You're going to die early like great-uncle Minho. Then who will run the company?" Something flickered across Jinho's face. Grief, maybe, or guilt. "Let's talk about the arrangement." The air shifted. This wasn't lunch anymore. This was a negotiation. Jinho slid a leather folder across the table. Inside, a contract. Zora's eyes caught phrases like temporary engagement, 6-month term, monthly compensation of 20 million won, full medical coverage, housing provided. 300 million won settlement at the end. Over 200,000 US dollars. Freedom. "Why?" Zora asked. "You could hire anyone. Why fake an engagement with a woman you met 12 hours ago?" Jinho's jaw tightened. "Because my son asked. Because he hasn't asked for anything since his mother left. Because..." He stopped. Exhaled slowly. "Because I don't know how to make him happy. And apparently you do." The honesty was brutal. Dae-hyun had gone very still. "I make you happy?" he whispered. "You smiled at me," Dae-hyun said quietly. "When you were scared, when those bad men were coming, you still smiled at me like I was brave. Yama never did that. She looked at me like I was the problem." Zora's heart shattered. She picked up the pen. "One condition." Jinho raised an eyebrow. "I'm not a doll. I work. I pay my own way. I don't take handouts. If I'm living in your house, I help. Cook. Clean. Whatever. I don't do useless." For the first time, Jinho almost smiled. "Deal," she signed. Dae-hyun cheered, and Zora, who'd spent 3 years running, finally stopped. Only subscribers get the full story. Don't be left behind. 3 weeks later, Zora woke up in silk sheets to the sound of Dae-hyun singing Frozen songs off-key in the hallway. The Hanam-dong residence was obscene. 10 bedrooms, a private gym, a library with first editions, and a kitchen that made Zora want to cry every time she walked into it. She'd cooked for Daehyun every night. Jjigae, kimchi bokkeumbap, even southern fried chicken that made him declare her a food wizard. Jinho was never home. When he was, he existed like a ghost, appearing for breakfast, reviewing documents during dinner, disappearing into his office until 2 a.m. He spoke to her with polite distance, asked if she needed anything, avoided eye contact like it might burn him. But sometimes, late at night when he thought everyone was asleep, Zora heard him in Daehyun's room, reading stories in a soft voice she didn't know he possessed, singing lullabies in English, badly, because Daehyun asked for them. The man was a fortress with one door, and that door only opened for his son. Until the night Daehyun collapsed. Zora was teaching him card games in the sunroom when his face went gray. The cards slipped from his fingers. His breathing turned shallow. Labored. Day? Zora's voice pitched high. Baby, what's wrong? Tired, he whispered. Just tired. He crumpled. Zora caught him, screaming for help. Staff appeared. The head housekeeper, 2 guards, someone calling emergency services. But before the ambulance arrived, Jinho burst through the door. And she'd never seen him run. Never seen him anything but controlled. Now he was wild. Raw panic carved into every line of his body. Daehyun, ah, he breathed, dropping to his knees, gathering his son into his arms. No, no. Not again. She never saw the danger coming. Most people don't. Subscribe so you're not caught off guard. The medic crew arrived. They moved Daehyun to a stretcher, attaching monitors, speaking rapid medical Korean that Zora couldn't follow. Jinho was right there, his hand gripping his son's, white-knuckled and trembling. In the ambulance, with machines beeping and paramedics working, Jinho finally looked at Zora. He has a heart condition, he said, voice scraped raw. Dilated cardiomyopathy, diagnosed 2 years ago. He's on the transplant list, but we're still waiting for a match. Zora felt the world tilt. He's been sick this whole time? Yes. And you didn't tell me? Would you have stayed if you knew? Jinho's eyes were hollow. Would you have signed a contract to watch a child die? The accusation hung between them like smoke. At Seoul National University Hospital, they stabilized Daehyun, medications, monitoring, a team of cardiologists speaking in grave tones about declining function and accelerated timeline. Zora sat in the waiting room, numb, while Jinho spoke with doctors. When he returned, he looked like he'd aged a decade. They're admitting him for observation. 3 days, maybe more. He sat down heavily, head in his hands. I can arrange for a car to take you home. No. He looked up. I'm staying, Zora said. That's my... She caught herself. That's Day. I'm staying. Something cracked in Jinho's expression. You don't have to. I know. They sat in silence. 2 strangers bound by a child's hope. Monitors beeped. Seoul's night pressed against the windows. Hours passed. Neither of them moved. At some point, exhaustion won. Zora's head dropped onto Jinho's shoulder. She felt him stiffen. Then slowly, carefully, his arm came around her. When she woke at dawn, his hand was still there, holding her like she might disappear. On the second day, Daehyun opened his eyes. Mom, he whispered, looking at Zora. The word hit her like a freight train. She rushed to his bedside, grabbed his small hand. Hey, brave knight, you scared us. Sorry. His smile was weak but real. Did you and Appa fight? No, baby. Why? You look sad. Both of you. He squeezed her fingers. Don't be sad. I'm okay. But he wasn't okay. And they all knew it. Jinho stood at the foot of the bed, face carved from stone, watching his son with an expression that broke Zora's heart. Later, when Daehyun fell back asleep, Jinho walked to the window, stared out at the city. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For not telling you. For assuming you'd leave." Zora joined him at the window. "I'm not leaving." "You should." His voice was flat. "This isn't what you signed up for. Watching a 6-year-old wait for a heart that might never come. Living in a house where everyone's just waiting for the worst. Is that what you think I am? Someone who only stays when things are easy?" He finally looked at her. Really looked. "I don't know what you are. You confuse me." "Good." She held his gaze. "Because you confuse me too. You act like you don't care about anything except business and your son. But I hear you singing to him at 2 a.m. I see you checking on me when you think I'm asleep. You're not as cold as you pretend." "Caring is dangerous," Jinho said. "Everyone I've ever cared about has either left or died." "Not everyone." Zora stepped closer. "I'm still here." His jaw worked. He looked like he wanted to say something. Argue. Push her away. Instead, his hand lifted, touched her face. Just once. Barely there. Then he dropped it and walked away. But Zora felt that touch for hours. What happens next will break you. Subscribe before you miss it. On the second night of Daehyun's hospitalization, Zora went to the cafeteria for coffee and overheard a conversation that made her blood freeze. Two women in expensive hanbok, speaking Korean. Zora's Korean was improving, and she caught enough. "Choi family curse, I tell you. First the grandfather's scandal, then the mother's defection, now the child's heart. Did you hear about the American woman? Living in the house? Probably another gold digger like the ex-wife, though I heard this one is black. Can you believe it? The Choi family matriarch must be having fits. The boy isn't even his, you know. The ex-wife admitted it during the divorce. The child is from an affair with..." Zora's coffee cup slipped from her numb fingers, shattered on the floor. The women turned, startled. Zora didn't care. She walked out, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Daehyun wasn't Jinho's biological son? Back in the room, Jinho was asleep in the chair beside Daehyun's bed. Head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, hand still holding his son's. Daehyun slept peacefully under sedation, small chest rising and falling with mechanical regularity. Zora stared at them. This man who'd moved heaven and earth for a child who might not share his blood. This little boy who loved so fiercely despite being abandoned. And realized with stunning clarity, it didn't matter. Blood meant nothing. She'd learned that from Kwame and Derek. Family was chosen. But if the gossip was true, what else was true? What else had Jinho not told her? The media found out on a rainy Thursday. Photos everywhere. Zora entering Hanseong Tower. Zora at the hospital, eyes red from crying. Zora and Jinho in the cafeteria, his hand briefly touching her shoulder in comfort. Captured, cropped, weaponized. Headlines screamed, Han Sung-hae's secret American lover. Black waitress seduces Korea's most powerful CEO. Choi Jinho's scandalous new woman, gold digger or genuine. Zora's phone exploded. Unknown numbers, threats in broken English, marriage proposals from creeps. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Jinho's legal team tried containment. But the fire spread too fast. Within 48 hours, every news outlet in Seoul was speculating about their relationship. Still not subscribing? Drop a comment. What's holding you back? Then the interview happened. Lee Soo-min appeared on the most-watched morning show in Korea. Beautiful. Poised. Designer clothes. Crocodile tears. "I made mistakes," she said in Korean, subtitles crawling across the screen. "I was young, frightened by Daehyun's diagnosis. But I've changed. I want my son back. And this American woman, this stranger, has poisoned my child against me. Jinho is using her to keep me from my baby." Zora watched from the hospital lounge, blood roaring in her ears. Jinho found her there. Remote control gripped so tight her knuckles were white. "Don't," he said quietly. "She abandoned him." Zora's voice shook. "She left when he was sick, and now she wants back in because you're news?" "She wants money. She always wants money." Jinho took the remote from her, switched off the screen. "My lawyers will handle it." "And me?" Zora turned to face him. "How do you handle me? I'm the scandal now. I'm the reason she can play victim. You're the reason my son is still fighting." Jinho stepped closer. Close enough she could see the exhaustion carved into his face. "You're the reason he smiles, the reason he eats. Ish the reason I—" He stopped, jaw working. "The reason you what?" He looked at her like she was a problem he couldn't solve, a variable that didn't fit his equations. "The reason I'm afraid," he finally said, "because when this ends, when the 6 months are up and you leave like everyone leaves, it won't just break him. It'll break me too." The confession hung between them. Raw. Terrible. Subscribe now. You don't want to miss what's coming. Zora's phone buzzed. Secretary Yoon's name flashed on the screen. She answered. "Hello? Miss Hollins." Yoon's voice was tight. "We have a situation. The media has located your uncle and cousin in the States. They're shopping an interview. Allegations of family abandonment. Claims that you stole money. That's not true. And they have documents. Forged, likely, but convincing. Legal wants to know how you'd like to proceed." Zora looked at Jinho, who'd gone very still. "What kind of documents?" she asked. "Bank transfers allegedly showing you draining your mother's accounts. Photos of you with various men, suggesting—" Yoon hesitated. "Suggesting you have a pattern of exploiting wealthy individuals." The room spun. "How long until they publish?" Jinho's voice. Cold. Controlled. 72 hours. Maybe less." Jinho ended the call, turned to Zora. "This is my fault. I should have protected you better. I'll fix this." "No." Zora's hands curled into fists. "No more protection. No more hiding. If they want to fight, let's give them a fight." "Zora, I have evidence too. Receipts, messages, police reports from when Derek broke my arm." Her voice was steel. "If we're burning bridges, let's burn them all." Jinho studied her. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Then we fight together," he said. "Only subscribers see how this war ends. Don't miss it." That night they worked in Jinho's office until 3 a.m., spreading documents across his desk like battle plans. Bank statements proving every dollar Zora sent home. Medical records from the ER visit after Derek's attack. Text messages showing years of threats and manipulation. Jinho's legal team would leak it all. Strategic, devastating, timed for maximum impact. "They'll destroy you publicly," Jinho warned. "Your family, the media. They'll make you the villain before we can make you the victim." "Let them try." Zora's eyes were fierce. "I've survived worse than bad press." He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're not afraid." "I'm terrified." She met his gaze. "But I'm more afraid of letting them win." Something passed between them. Understanding. Partnership. Jinho stepped around the desk. Stopped inches from her. "When this is over," he said quietly, "when we've destroyed them all, and the dust settles, will you still be here?" Zora's breath caught. "Where else would I be?" "Free." His hand lifted, touched her face. "You could be free. No contract. No fake engagement. No dying child tying you to a man who doesn't know how to be anything but cold." "You're not cold." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You're scared. There's a difference." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You make me want things I promised myself I'd never want again." "Like what?" Like this. He kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. Desperate and hungry and real. Zora melted into him, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like coffee and exhaustion, and something darker she couldn't name. When they broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, neither spoke. Then Zora's phone buzzed again. A nurse. Rushed. Urgent. Mr. Choi. Daehyun's cardiac monitor, he's crashing. They ran. Daehyun stabilized after 20 minutes that felt like 20 years. The doctors spoke in hushed, grim tones. His heart was failing faster than anticipated. They needed a donor within weeks. Not months. Weeks. Jinho stood over his son's bed, face carved from stone, while Zora clutched Daehyun's small hand and prayed to gods she'd stopped believing in. That night, at 2:47 a.m., Zora found Jinho in the hospital chapel. Empty at this hour. Just him and shadows and stained glass that caught no light. And he didn't look up when she sat beside him. He's not mine, Jinho said quietly. Biologically. Soman told me during the divorce. Thought it would hurt me, make me abandon him like she did. But you didn't. He's my son. Simple. Absolute. Biology is just chemistry. Love is choice. Zora's throat burned. Why didn't you tell me? Because everyone I've ever told has looked at me like I'm a fool, like I should give him back, cut my losses. Like love has terms and conditions. He finally turned to her. Why didn't you run when you found out he was sick? Because running is what everyone expected. She smiled weakly. I'm tired of being predictable. They sat in silence, shoulders touching, two broken people pretending to be whole. Then Jinho's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, went very, very still. What? Zora asked. Lee Suman just filed for emergency custody, claims I'm an unfit father using a foreign mistress to alienate her son. She has a hearing scheduled for next week. Can she do that? In Korea? With the right judge? The right connections? Jinho's smile was sharp and bitter. Family law favors mothers, even absent ones, especially against fathers with scandalous American girlfriends. I'm not your... To the court you are. To Korea you are. And unless we can prove otherwise, unless we make this engagement real in every legal sense, she can take him. Zora stared. You're saying, marry me. His voice was raw. For real. Not a contract. Not pretend. Marry me. Adopt Daehyun. Become his legal mother before she can sink her claws back in. What she says next changes everything. Subscribe before the twist catches you. Daehyun's face went gray, and the card slipped from his fingers. His breathing turned shallow, labored, like someone was pressing down on his chest. Dae? Zora's voice pitched high. Baby, what's wrong? Tired, he whispered. Just tired. He crumpled. Zora caught him before he hit the floor, screaming for help. Staff appeared. The head housekeeper. 2 guards. Someone was calling for an ambulance. But before the paramedics arrived, Jinho burst through the door. She'd never seen him run. Never seen him anything but controlled. Now he was wild. Raw panic carved into every line of his body. Daehyun, ah! He breathed, dropping to his knees, gathering his son into his arms. No, no, not again. The medic crew moved fast. Stretcher. Monitors. Rapid Korean that Zora couldn't follow. Jinho was right there, hand gripping his son's, white-knuckled and trembling. In the ambulance, with machines beeping and paramedics working, Jinho finally looked at Zora. He has a heart condition, he said, voice scraped raw. Dilated cardiomyopathy, diagnosed 2 years ago. He's on the transplant list, but we're still waiting for a match. Zora felt the world tilt. He's been sick this whole time? Yes. And you didn't tell me? Would you have stayed if you knew? Jinho's eyes were hollow. Would you have signed a contract to watch a child die? The accusation hung between them like smoke. She never saw the danger coming. Most people don't. Subscribe so you're not caught off guard. At Seoul National University Hospital, they stabilized Dae-hyun, medications, monitoring. A team of cardiologists speaking in grave tones about declining function and accelerated timeline. Zora sat in the waiting room, numb, while Jinho spoke with doctors. When he returned, he looked like he'd aged a decade. They're admitting him for observation. 3 days, maybe more. He sat down heavily, head in his hands. I can arrange for a car to take you home. No. He looked up. I'm staying, Zora said. That's my... She caught herself. That's Day. I'm staying. Something cracked in Jinho's expression. You don't have to. I know. They sat in silence, two strangers bound by a child's hope, while monitors beeped and Seoul's night pressed against the windows. On the second night of Dae-hyun's hospitalization, Zora went to the cafeteria for coffee and overheard a conversation that made her blood freeze. Two women in expensive hanbok speaking Korean. Zora's Korean was improving, and she caught enough. Choi family curse, I tell you. First the grandfather's scandal, then the mother's defection, now the child's heart. Did you hear about the American woman? Living in the house? Probably another gold digger like the ex-wife. Though I heard this one is black. Can you imagine? The Choi family matriarch must be having fits. The boy isn't even his, you know. The ex-wife admitted it during the divorce. The child is from an affair with... Zora's coffee cup slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the floor. The women turned, startled. Zora didn't care. She walked out, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Dae-hyun wasn't Jinho's biological son? Back in the room, Jinho was asleep in the chair beside Dae-hyun's bed, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, hand still holding his son's. Dae-hyun slept peacefully under sedation, small chest rising and falling with mechanical regularity. Zora stared at them, this man who'd moved heaven and earth for a child who might not share his blood. This little boy who loved so fiercely despite being abandoned. Blood meant nothing. She'd learned that from Kwame and Derek. Family was chosen. That night, at 2:47 a.m., Zora found Jinho in the hospital chapel. Empty at this hour. Just him and shadows and stained glass that caught no light. He didn't look up when she sat beside him. He's not mine, Jinho said quietly. Biologically. So-min told me during the divorce. Thought it would hurt me, make me abandon him like she did. But you didn't. He's my son. Simple. Absolute. Biology is just chemistry. Love is choice. Zora's throat burned. Why didn't you tell me? Because everyone I've ever told has looked at me like I'm a fool, like I should give him back, cut my losses, like love has terms and conditions. He finally turned to her. Why didn't you run? When you found out he was sick? Because running is what everyone expected. She smiled weakly. I'm tired of being predictable. They sat in silence, shoulders touching, two broken people pretending to be whole. Then Jinho's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, went very, very still. What? Zora asked. Lee Soo-min, he said slowly. Just filed for emergency custody. Claims I'm an unfit father using a foreign mistress to alienate her son. She has a hearing scheduled for next week. Can she do that? In Korea? With the right judge? The right connections? Jinho's smile was sharp and bitter. Family law favors mothers, even absent ones, especially against fathers with scandalous American girlfriends. I'm not your... To the court, you are. To Korea, you are. And unless we can prove otherwise, unless we make this engagement real in every legal sense, she can take him. Zora stared. You're saying, marry me, Jinho said. For real. Not a contract. Not pretend. Marry me. Adopt Dae-hyun, become his legal mother before she can sink her claws back in. That's insane. I know. We barely know each other. I know. This could destroy both our lives. I know. He took her hand. But it's the only way to save his. The chapel clock chimed 3 times. Outside, Seoul prepared for dawn. Zora Hollins, who'd promised herself she'd never be trapped again, looked at this desperate, damaged man and his dying son. Ask me properly, she said. Jinho blinked. What? You're a CEO. You run empires. You can propose properly. Something almost like a smile ghosted across his face. He slid off the pew onto one knee on cold chapel stone, still holding her hand. Zora Hollins, he said quietly. Will you marry me? Will you save my son? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? She should say no. Should run. Should protect herself. Yes, she whispered. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe before the twist catches you. They married at dawn in a courthouse. No white dress, no flowers, no celebration. Just legal armor against a woman who'd already abandoned her son once and now wanted him back for revenge. Secretary Yoon and 2 guards witnessed. The officiant spoke Korean too fast for Zora to follow. When he asked if she took Choi Jinho as her lawfully wedded husband, she said yes in a voice that didn't shake. When Jinho slipped the ring on her finger, platinum, simple, no diamond, his hand was steady even though his eyes weren't. The moment they signed the papers, Jinho's team executed, coordinated, surgical, devastating. Within an hour, every major news outlet in Seoul received packages. Zora's police reports from Atlanta, documenting years of abuse. Bank statements proving Kwame and Derek had stolen her mother's life insurance. Medical records from when Derek broke her arm. Testimony from neighbors, teachers, former employers. Simultaneously, Lee Suman's affair partner was exposed, a married businessman who'd embezzled from his own company to fund her lifestyle. 10 text messages leaked showing Suman planning to use Dae-hyun's illness for sympathy while negotiating movie deals about her tragic maternal journey. The internet exploded. Suman's narrative collapsed like a building with no foundation. Within hours, she was the villain. Zora was the hero, the waitress who'd married a CEO to save his dying son. Kwame and Derek faced criminal fraud charges in 2 countries. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like locusts. Jinho pulled Zora close, hand possessive on her waist, and addressed the cameras in cold Korean that needed no translation. His tone said everything. Touch her, and I'll destroy you. Only subscribers get the full story. Don't be left behind. Back in the car, adrenaline crashing, they finally looked at each other as husband and wife. This wasn't how I imagined my wedding, Zora whispered. How did you imagine it? With someone I loved. Jinho's thumb traced her jaw. How did you imagine it? She asked back. The same. His voice was rough. With someone who chose me. Not my money. Not my name. Just me. The confession hung between them. Then he kissed her. Not gentle. Not careful. Claiming. Desperate. Real. His hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her closer. She slid her fingers into his hair, tugging just enough to make him groan low in his throat. The kiss deepened. Hungry. Years of loneliness unraveling in seconds. When they broke apart, breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. You're mine now, he said. I protect what's mine. I'm not a possession. No. His eyes met hers. You're my wife, which means when someone threatens you, they threaten my family, and I don't forgive threats to my family. Something in his tone made her shiver. Not fear. Something darker. Something that should have scared her, but didn't. They went straight to the hospital. Dae-hyun was awake, coloring weakly in bed. Appa! His face lit up when they walked in. Then he noticed their hands clasped together. Did you get married? Jinho knelt beside the bed. We did. Zora is your Iyama now. Legally. Forever. Daehyun's eyes filled with tears. Forever? Forever, Zora said, voice breaking. He threw his small arms around her neck. I love you, Mom. The word hit her like lightning. Mom. Not Zora. Not Miss. Mom. She buried her face in his hair and cried. Jinho's hand settled on her back, warm and steady. For the first time in her life, Zora felt like she belonged somewhere. That night, the news cycle turned completely. Photos of them at the hospital, Jinho's protective hand on Zora's back, Zora holding Daehyun's hand, all three of them exhausted but together, went viral. Modern family fights for dying son. CEO marries waitress to save child. True love or legal strategy? Choi Jinho's beautiful sacrifice. Public opinion shifted overnight, from scandal to fairy tale, but in a penthouse across Seoul, Lee Soo-min watched the news and smiled. She made a phone call. It's time, she said in Korean. Release everything. Subscribe before you miss what's coming next. Daehyun's condition worsened on a Tuesday. Doctors spoke in hushed tones about accelerated decline and critical timeline. His heart was failing faster than anyone predicted. They had weeks, maybe less. That same night, Zora received an envelope. No return address, just photos inside. Jinho, 15 years younger, standing with men in expensive suits and cold eyes, men she recognized from documentaries about organized crime, Yakuza, Korean-Japanese underworld bosses. A note, typed in English. Your husband built his empire on blood money. You married a monster. Leave now, or become collateral. Zora's hands shook. She found Jinho in his office at 2 a.m., reviewing donor lists with the same intensity he probably used closing billion-won deals. She dropped the envelope on his desk. He looked at the photos. Didn't even flinch. When were you going to tell me? Her voice was cold. Never, if I could avoid it. He set the photos down carefully. My grandfather made deals with dangerous men, built Hansong on their investments. When he died, I inherited the company and the debts. Not just money, favors, obligations, connections I couldn't sever without destroying everything. So you just kept working with criminals? I spent 10 years legitimizing the business, cutting ties, paying back every dirty one with clean money. But some shadows don't wash off. His eyes met hers. I'm not proud of where I came from, but I won't apologize for using every resource I had to build something better. Better? Zora's laugh was bitter. You're connected to the Yakuza, Jinho. Those people kill for money. Gunshots shattered the windows. Glass exploded inward. Jinho threw himself over Zora, driving them both to the floor. More shots. Systematic. Professional. Then silence. Jinho's security team flooded the office. 4 men eliminated the threat in under 90 seconds. When Jinho finally let Zora up, there was blood on his shirt. Not his. Hers. A shard of glass had caught her shoulder. His face went white, then black with rage. Get me Ishida, he said in Japanese to one of his men. Now. She never saw it coming. Subscribe so you're not caught off guard. 20 minutes later, Jinho was on the phone, speaking rapid Japanese. His voice was winter death, cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. When he hung up, he looked at Zora. The mask was gone. What remained was something primitive, dangerous. The Ishida family will cease to exist by morning, he said flatly. Anyone who gave the order, carried it out, or knew about it. Gone. Zora should have been horrified, should have run. Instead, she touched his blood-stained hand. I'm not leaving. You should. I know. She stepped closer. But I'm not. Because I see what you are, Jinho. You're not a monster. You're a man who made impossible choices to protect what matters. Just like I did when I ran to Korea. Just like you did when you kept Daehyun. We're both survivors. And survivors do what they have to. Something in his eyes broke. He pulled her into his arms, careful of her injured shoulder, and held her like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. I don't deserve you, he whispered against her hair. Probably not. She tilted her face up. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her. Different from the courthouse kiss. This one was softer. Vulnerable. Like he was afraid she'd disappear if he held on too tight. When they pulled apart, his phone buzzed. Secretary Yoon's name on the screen. He answered on speaker. Sir, we have a situation. Ishida Kato is requesting a meeting. In person. In tonight. Jinho's jaw clenched. Tell him. He says he has information about a donor heart. For Daehyun. Zora's breath stopped. What's the catch? Jinho asked. He'll only discuss terms with you. Face to face. He's waiting at the Shilla Hotel. Penthouse suite. Jinho looked at Zora. She saw the calculation in his eyes. The risk, the trap, the impossible choice. I'm going with you, she said. Absolutely not. I'm your wife. Where you go, I go. That's the deal. For a long moment he just stared at her, then nodded once. Tell Ishida we're coming, he said into the phone. Both of us. They walked out together, hand in hand, into whatever darkness waited. What happens next changes everything. Subscribe before you miss it. Ishida Kato looked like death wearing an expensive suit. 70 years old, silver hair slicked back, eyes like black ice. He sat in the Shilla Hotel penthouse suite surrounded by 4 bodyguards who made Jinho's security team look like mall cops. When Jinho and Zora entered, Ishida didn't stand, just gestured to the chairs across from him. Choi-san, he said in Japanese accented Korean, and the American wife. How romantic. You said you have information about a donor heart, Jinho said flatly. No pleasantries, no games. My grandson. Ishida's voice was empty. 17 years old. Motorcycle accident 3 days ago. Brain dead. His heart is a perfect match for your son. Zora's breath caught. What's the price? Jinho asked. Ishida smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You know the price. My family has wanted controlling interest in Hansung for 20 years. Your grandfather promised it to us before he died. Ha, you've been stalling ever since. I've been paying you back. Every yen. With interest. Money isn't enough. Ishida leaned forward. 51% of Hansung Group. Transferred to my shell companies. In exchange, my grandson's heart saves your son. The room went silent. Jinho's empire. Everything he'd built. Everything he'd fought for. Gone. Done, Jinho said. No hesitation, no negotiation. Zora grabbed his arm. Wait. You can't just... It's my company, Jinho said quietly. My choice. It's our family, she fired back. You don't make decisions like this alone? There is no decision. He turned to face her. Without Daehyun, the company means nothing. Without you both, I have nothing worth protecting. Tears burned Zora's eyes. You're giving up everything. No. His hand cupped her face. I'm choosing what matters. Ishida stood. The transplant team is ready. Surgery scheduled for tomorrow morning. My lawyers will have the transfer documents ready by then. He walked out, bodyguards following like shadows. Zora and Jinho sat in silence for a long moment. You should hate me right now, Jinho finally said. I do. She laughed, broken and wet. I hate that you didn't tell me. I hate that you think you have to carry everything alone. I hate that you're willing to sacrifice everything without even asking. He kissed her. Hard. Desperate. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said. first time out loud. I love you and it terrifies me because I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in. How to share the weight. I've been alone so long. I forgot what partnership looks like. Then let's be terrified together. She kissed him back. Softer. And next time you make a decision that affects our family, you talk to me first. Deal? Deal. Still not subscribing? You don't want to miss what happens next. The surgery was scheduled for 6 a.m. At 5:30, they stood over Daehyun's bed. He was sedated, small and fragile under white sheets, IVs taped to his thin arms. If he doesn't wake up, Zora's voice broke. He will. Jinho's hand found hers. And when he does, we'll be here. Together. All three of us. They made promises in whispers. Daehyun would learn to play soccer. They'd take him to Jeju Island. He'd grow up knowing he was loved, not because of blood, but because of choice. The surgical team came at 5:55. Zora kissed Daehyun's forehead. I love you, baby. Mom's right here. Jinho's hand never left hers as they wheeled their son away. Then they sat in the surgical waiting room, two people who'd become a family in the span of weeks, and waited to see if love was enough to keep their world from falling apart. Subscribe before you miss what happens next. 11 hours? The surgery took 11 hours. Zora and Jinho didn't speak. Didn't eat. Just sat with their fingers interlaced so tight they went numb. At hour 8, Zora started praying to gods she wasn't sure she believed in. At hour 10, Jinho's mask finally cracked. Silent tears sliding down his face. At hour 11, the surgeon emerged, blood on his scrubs. Exhaustion carved into his face, but smiling. The transplant was successful, he said in careful English. The new heart is functioning well. Isha will monitor closely for the next 72 hours, but Daehyun is stable. Zora's knees gave out. Jinho caught her, and they clung to each other, sobbing, laughing, broken with relief. 2 days later, Daehyun woke, groggy, sore, small tubes still in his nose, but alive. Pink color in his cheeks Zora had never seen before. His eyes fluttered open, found Zora first. Mom? The word destroyed her. She pressed her face against his small hand and cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Jinho stood on the other side of the bed, hand on Daehyun's head, tears streaming silent and unchecked. Did I get my new heart? Daehyun whispered. You did, baby. Zora's voice shook. You're going to be okay. Does this mean I can play soccer now? Jinho laughed, raw, disbelieving, joyful. Eventually, yes. Daehyun smiled, then closed his eyes again, drifting back to sleep. But his fingers stayed wrapped around Zora's. The media narrative shifted overnight. Photos of them in the hospital, exhausted, tear-stained, holding Daehyun's hands, went viral worldwide. Love conquers all. CEO sacrifices. Empire to save son. Modern family's miracle. Waitress becomes mother through marriage and devotion. Choi Jinho's ultimate sacrifice proves love isn't about blood. Lee Soo-min attempted one final custody motion. The judge threw it out in under 5 minutes. Zora was Daehyun's legal mother now. Biology meant nothing compared to the woman who'd married into a nightmare to save a dying child. Ishida Kato kept his word. The business transfer went through. But 3 weeks after the surgery, he made an unexpected call. My grandson would have wanted the boy to live, Ishida said. And a man willing to burn his empire for his son's life. That's someone I respect. I'm offering a partnership instead of a takeover. 49%. You keep control. We share profits. Your legitimacy. My connections. Jinho negotiated for 2 hours. Walked away with terms that let him rebuild Hanseong stronger than before. Clean money, clean connections, no more shadows. Only subscribers get the full story. Don't be left behind. 1 year later, Daehyun kicked a soccer ball across the grass in their backyard, laughing as their new puppy chased after him. His scar had faded to a thin line down his chest. His energy was boundless. Inside the house, Zora stood in the kitchen making kimchi jjigae. 6 months pregnant, wearing one of Jinho's old shirts, hair tied back in a messy bun. Jinho came up behind her, arms circling her waist, hand protective over her growing belly. "Was I worth it?" she asked softly. "Giving up everything?" He pressed his face into her neck. "You weren't worth marrying for the contract. You were worth marrying for this. For teaching me that family isn't blood. It's the people who hold your hand in hospital waiting rooms and don't let go. For showing me that love is choosing to stay when everyone else runs." Through the window they watched Daehyun. Healthy. Alive. Laughing. "He asked me today if the baby would be his real brother," Zora said. "What did you tell him?" "I told him all siblings are real if you choose to love them. Just like how his dad chose to love him. Just like how I chose to love both of you." Jinho turned her around, kissed her slow and deep. "I love you, Zora Choi. I love you too." Daehyun burst through the door. "Mom! Dad! The puppy ate my soccer ball. Can we get a new one?" They laughed. Both of them. Together. This was what love looked like when it survived the fire. Messy, imperfect, chosen. A waitress from Atlanta. A CEO with a dark past. A little boy who proposed in a kitchen. 3 broken people who became a family. Not because of blood, because of choice. If you made it this far, you're part of our family now. Subscribe and stay for more stories where love breaks all the rules.